Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this evening's update on Tropical Storm Philippe. So, Tropical Storm Philippe continues to hover around Puerto Rico and the U.S. and British Virgin Islands, and as of 5 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time, Tuesday, October the 3rd, Tropical Storm Philippe has maximum sustained winds of 45 miles per hour, a minimum central pressure of 1,004 millibars, and northwesterly movement at 12 miles per hour, and continues to bring impacts to Puerto Rico and the U.S. and British Virgin Islands this evening. Looking at the latest National Hurricane Center's cone for Philippe, Philippe continues to bring tropical storm force winds to areas like St. Bartholomew and Anguilla, as well as the British Virgin Islands, and now is expected to start moving to the north overnight through the next couple of days, and by Friday afternoon, Philippe is expected to pass just to the west of Bermuda, bringing some impacts to Bermuda Friday, and then Tropical Storm Philippe is expected to move up towards areas like Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Maine as we go into Sunday afternoon. So make sure you're keeping an eye on Philippe if you live in Bermuda, Maine, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia. So looking at the latest Zoom Earth satellite imagery and interactive cone for Philippe, Philippe continues to deal with some very strong westerly wind shear, which is what has weakened Philippe today. But we are still seeing some pretty heavy rain across the British Virgin Islands, U.S. Virgin Islands, Anguilla, and St. Bartholomew. Taking a look at the radar, we can see that both the U.S. and British Virgin Islands are dealing with some moderate to heavy rain as Philippe hovers just to the north of the islands. So looking at the future cone for Philippe, as we go into Wednesday 1 a.m. Central Time, 45 mile per hour tropical storm moving to the northwest. And then as we go into Wednesday 1 p.m. Central Time, 45 mile per hour tropical storm moving to the north-northwest, with most of the impacts pulling away from Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. Thursday 1 a.m. Central Time, 45 mile per hour tropical storm curving to the north. By Thursday 1 p.m. Central Time, 45 mile per hour tropical storm moving to the north. And then going into Friday 1 a.m. Central Time, 50 mile per hour tropical storm moving to the north. And then we're going to be seeing Philippe pass about 50 miles west of Bermuda now as a 50 mile per hour tropical storm by Friday afternoon. And then Philippe is going to race to the north as he gets ejected by a trough Saturday 1 p.m. Central Time, 60 mile per hour post-tropical cyclone moving to the northwest. And then could see a landfall in eastern Maine or southwestern New Brunswick by Sunday 1 p.m. Central Time as a 50 mile per hour post-tropical cyclone. So looking at some potential impacts across both Bermuda and New England and Atlantic Canada, looking at the GFS model, we can expect an additional 2 to 3 inches of rain across Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, in areas like Anguilla and St. Bartholomew. And Bermuda, you could get a lot of rain from Tropical Storm Philippe, as the GFS is indicating as much as 2 to 5 inches, with potentially as much as 7 inches if the core of Philippe moves over Bermuda. And then across Nova Scotia, about 1 to 2 inches in southwest Nova Scotia, New Brunswick about 1 to 3 inches, and then Maine about 2 to 4 inches could be possible from Tropical Storm Philippe. So this could bring some flooding to especially Bermuda, as well as portions of Maine, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia. Looking at the European model for rainfall accumulations, the European model is bringing about 2 to 3 inches to Bermuda and a lot less to New England and Atlantic Canada, only about 1 inch to 2 inches across Maine, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia. So if the European model solution pans out, we'll be seeing less of a flood threat across Maine and Atlantic Canada. However, Bermuda, you could still be seeing some flooding issues if this core of heavy rain moves to the northwest a little bit. And looking at the Canadian model, once again, the Canadian is the most aggressive, bringing an additional 3 to 4 inches across the Virgin Islands, and then Puerto Rico about 1 to 2 inches, and Bermuda as much as 5 to 7 inches in the Canadian model, and then up towards Nova Scotia about 1 to 4 inches, same with New Brunswick, and same with Maine about 2 to 4 inches. So if the Canadian model verifies, we could be seeing some flooding issues across Maine, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and especially Bermuda. So make sure you're paying close attention to Philippe over the next several days. And looking at the key messages for Philippe to close the video out, heavy rainfall from Philippe is expected to produce scattered flash flooding across portions of the northern Leeward Islands and the British Virgin Islands into early Wednesday. Gusty winds are likely to continue across portions of the northern Leeward Islands and the Virgin Islands through Wednesday. The risk is increasing for tropical storm conditions to occur on Bermuda later this week. Interests on Bermuda should monitor the progress of Philippe. So thanks for watching this evening's update on Tropical Storm Philippe. Make sure you're paying close attention to Philippe if you live across Bermuda, as well as Maine and areas of New Brunswick and Nova Scotia. Thanks for watching. Please stay safe and have a wonderful evening, my friends.